This is part 2 of what everyone should know about lighting for home and office. We ended our last segment asking the questions, so if we need blue light and blue light is damaging to our eyes, what should we do? Well, before we can arrive at a complete answer for that, we need to understand what kind of lamp emits which kind of light. Now I'm going to use the word lamp to talk about all kinds of lights. Lamp includes light bulbs, light tubes, LEDs. I'm not talking about the actual fixture that you set on your end table. I'm talking about tubes, bulbs, and LEDs. And here we see a picture of 4 LEDs, and they're all emitting different colors of light. Blue and ultraviolet light comprise the primary emissions that come from cool white fluorescent and LED lamps. These blue and UV stands for ultraviolet, these blue and UV emissions cause the retina to work, as we've said before, 2 trillion times harder. That's 12 zeros, people, and do that many more operations per second than light from the red end of the spectrum. Now the spectrum goes from ultraviolet as super fast through blue, green, red, and infrared, which is super slow, and it too is invisible, but we feel it in the form of heat. So how can you and I tell the blue ones from the red ones? After all, when you're in the hardware store and you're looking at all the lighting stuff, they all look just alike. You look at a fluorescent tube that puts out red light and one that puts out blue light, and they look just exactly the same. But I want you to know that every tube or bulb has a code on it. And I'm showing a photo here of a cluster of 3 tubes, and on the end of each one, and of course they have 2 ends, but at one end you'll find a whole bunch of letters and a whole bunch of numbers, and that is the code. There's also a scale called the Kelvin Scale that converts color into numeric values. So in other words, for the color green, I'm going to look for the number 35. And I'm going to teach you that, those numeric values right now. The higher the Kelvin number is, the more blue and ultraviolet are contained in its emissions. Right now, the highest, the fastest and bluest emissions you can find are in a 6700 K. K stands for Kelvin, and that's the highest for now, but I heard that they're coming out with a 7100, so be aware. Now these bulbs are like standing in the polar midday sun on, what's the solstice, June 21st. They are bright and they produce a lot of glare. So we want colors in the Kelvin range that are much lower than 6700. So let's look at what colors are our friends and what colors are not our friends. 2800 Kelvin is the pink range, and this is, you can find many bulbs, tubes, and LEDs in this range. Sometimes it's difficult to find them, and you have to settle for 3000 Kelvin, which is just a little more toward the orange side, but it's all friendly. 3000 Kelvin is the orangey yellow range, and this is also our friend. 3500 Kelvin is the green range, and 4100 and above or higher in value is in the blue to ultraviolet range. So you will be able to find many more bulbs, tubes, and LEDs that are in the blue range than are in the pink and yellow and green range. However, they are out there, and it's our job as people who serve people who need rehabilitation and education to find those and recommend those for our people. Kelvin codes on bulbs and tubes and LEDs will be converted to a simple 28, 30, 36, 41. They'll take the zeros off, in other words, because there's limited space on a light bulb and especially on an LED. So you will be looking for the numbers 28, 30, and 35. Those will be our friendly numbers. And the rest are numbers that are have too much blue. And these will be the very last numbers on the code. So if you find a code that says something like 32/T8/C/28, we want to focus on that 28, that very last number. And that's going to tell us what the color range is. We know 28 is the red-pink range, and that's right where we want it, because our eyes will be working 2 trillion times slower than they would if we picked a light that was in the blue range. So if we have a code such as 16/T4/CF/61, we want to focus on that 61. And as I said, that would be a tube that shines like the polar sun on snow at midday. So that is very, very blue. And that's the kind of thing that we want to avoid. So you don't have to go turn on a bunch of light bulbs and look at them and squint and try to figure out which one is best for whom. All you have to do is look at that code. And if the number is 35 or less, you can trust that to be a good bulb for someone who has visual impairment. Now, just to make things difficult, there are some lighting companies that use letters instead of numbers. Yes, we can't have things be too simple for you. So, letters CW, D, FS, and DW are all code for high in blue emissions. Letters WW, SP, SPX, SP30, SPX30, and different numbers that come after the SP and SPX. Those will tell you that those are special phosphors. That's what the SP stands for. And special phosphors is just a fancy name for dirt or minerals that coat the inside of a tube. The number after the SP or the SPX will tell you what color that dirt is going to turn the light. So we have a typical fluorescent tube in the green range. We coat it with SP30, which is kind of a reddish dirt, and we get emissions that are SP27. That's in the pink range. That's great. That's as low as you can go. If it says SP30, that's going to be in the orangey yellow range. And for just plain yellow, 31 and 35 numerically will tell us that that's in the yellow range on Kelvin temperature. Now I'm going fast here, but remember, you can always go back and review these slides, or you can write to me, and I'll give you my email address at the end of this presentation, and I will be happy to send you copies of this information. You can also find this information at the CAT's website, where you will be able to review this presentation along with the audio. So now let's talk about spectral output. We're going to compare sunshine, we're going to compare cool white tubes and warm white tubes. And remember that this holds true for LEDs as well as tubes, okay? So if we look at sunlight, we see a distribution of about equal parts of red and green, red, yellow, green, and it starts tapering off and dropping off when we get to the blue range. So that by the time we get to ultraviolet, it's about half of the output of the red and yellow range. So we're only getting half as much blue light as we are red light, which is good. Sunlight's pretty good. Let's look at the, I'm sorry, I said we were going to look at a warm white and a cool white. We're actually going to look at an incandescent lamp, which is about the same as a warm white fluorescent. And when we look at this spectral distribution, we see a very, very high spike. In fact, the most that comes out of it is red, orange, and yellow, very high, and then it drops off to almost nothing in the blue and ultraviolet light. Incandescent lamps were our friends, folks. They really were. And of course, now they don't make them anymore. There are lots of mom and pop stores, hardware stores, and even old-fashioned grocery stores sometimes where you can buy them still. And whenever I see them, I buy them and I put them away for me to use as the years go by. Because these are truly friendly lamps that give you a nice warm pink light that doesn't hurt your retinas and put you in a glare situation. Now let's look at the cool white fluorescent. We see that it has very low, well, not very low, but about a third of the red light as sunlight. It has a high point of in the yellow and green range. Then it has a green spike, very high. It has a blue spike, very high. It actually should be much higher than it shows in this diagram. And then it has an ultraviolet spike that's very high. Now, a lot of people believe that the sun puts out a lot of blue and ultraviolet. And of course, compared to like a reading lamp, it puts out a ton. But when you're outside at midday, you're not getting that much blue and ultraviolet because the sun puts out mainly green light at those times. At times when you get the most blue and ultraviolet from the sun is at dawn, when the sun is just coming up. That's your blue light situation. And many people are not up at that time, and so they don't get that blue light, and that sort of messes up their circadian rhythms. So what we want to avoid are lamps that have high spikes or high quantities of blue and ultraviolet light. And you can ask any manufacturer for specifications on any tube that you buy. Their 800 number is always on the package. And you can ask them to send you these spectral distributions, and you can see just how much blue and ultraviolet light is put out by any tube or LED. So what we want is the best one, which is the warm white 27K in either LED, fluorescent, or any other kind of lamp. Now, in LEDs, we have a different situation than what we're accustomed to with fluorescent lamps. And here you'll see 4 different clusters of LEDs, and the light that they're putting out is reflected on the wall behind them. So we'll see that we'll start on the left, and the warm white, which is 2700 Kelvin to 3500 Kelvin, is kind of a pinkish glow. You can see that reflected on the wall. Then we move to what they call natural white, which I call way beyond natural white, because we know natural white is mostly green light, and this is not green at all. This is blue. This is 4000 to 4500 K, so we're already getting into the blue. Then we have what they call day white or daylight white, which is 5000 to 5500 K, and you can see it's got even more blue. And then we have cool white, which is 6000 K to 7000 K, and that not only has a lot of blue light, it has a lot of ultraviolet, which you can just barely detect by the slightly purplish color of the light that's reflected off the back wall. And folks, if blue light makes your eyes work 2 trillion times harder, ultraviolet light is off the chart. In fact, I was trying to do the mathematics for that, and there got to be so many zeros, I could not keep them all straight. I just know that it's far more than 2 trillion. And, you know, 2 trillion's enough for me, so it's just off the chart, so don't go there. So for now, your best bet, if you're trying to help someone with their desk setup at work or at home, or if you're trying to manage a lighting situation at home, your best bet are 2700K LEDs. And right now they've come out with a really smart invention called smart lighting. I guess that's why it's a smart invention. And it is lighting that changes throughout the day according to your needs. So when you get up in the morning, as shown in the picture on the left, you can have a blue light situation. Now you'll notice that the light on the left-hand picture doesn't really look blue. It just looks kind of white with sort of a eerie glow. And but that is blue-white light, and this is what people need at dawn. And so if you're getting up and you're making breakfast, this is the kind of light you would want to turn on in your house if you had one of these smart lighting systems. And then with just a move of your finger on the remote control in the evening or at noon, you could change that to a green light situation. Doesn't really look green, it just looks white like sunlight. And then in the evening, you can change it to, in this case, we have an amber light situation, which is about 3000K. And we can see how different that looks from the very same room on the left when it's lit with cool white light. So we can change that throughout the day to whatever we need. And I happen to know a Voc rehab counselor who has smart lighting in his home, and he absolutely loves it. He says his circadian rhythms were all off. He's not a person who's ever slept very well. And since he's got the smart lighting in his home, he sleeps a whole lot better. So there's a testimony for you. So smart lighting is a set of LED lamps that can be set up to emit any color or intensity of light that you want for any time of day. Or you can set it to cycle through the natural colors of light that occur during the day, such as blue light at dawn, green light during the day, and red light near sunset. And you don't have to change a bulb. All you have to do is move your finger. If you are visually impaired, you can make it emit warm light all day, which is what I would choose. So I would have pinkish reddish light in my house all day, knowing that I spend plenty of time in front of a window near my computer where I'm getting plenty of blue light. So here's a picture of a little baby, and she has a very surprised look on her face. And the caption is, physiologically speaking, almost everything we thought we knew about color theory is incorrect. And I want to teach you a little bit about color theory because people who work in education and rehabilitation have thought for a long time some things which are basically untrue. And we have subjected our clients and our students to conditions which are just downright bad for them. And if we're going to change lighting and we're going to go to all the trouble to do that and all the steps necessary to go through our administrators and work supervisors, we might as well go all the way and change the colors of the environment if we can. So let's talk about that. Tests on human beings show that blue is not soothing. It is irritating to our nervous systems. Here's a picture of the beach in Samoa, and the water's blue, the sky's blue, the rocks are black, and the little waves are white, and it's just beautiful and relaxing. Now, we've taught ourselves to believe that because the beach is relaxing and because the waves and water are relaxing, that blue is relaxing and that's what relaxes us. But that's just not true. Blue speeds up our metabolism, it speeds up our thought processes, and long term in a blue room, a person gets very nervous and starts suffering some effects that are similar to the effects of glare. And that's even people with typical vision. Yellow, on the other hand, is not stimulating. A lot of people use this for children's rooms because they think it's stimulating. It actually makes your neurological state more serene. And here I have a picture of dining room at Monticello, which was George Washington's house. And we see the walls are bright yellow and the woodwork is painted white. And it's a very serene looking room. Yellow does not increase your metabolic state or your neurological state. to any degree that is uncomfortable. So we want to use yellow more. And I really suggest painting offices and rooms yellow. Doesn't necessarily have to be like banana yellow, but it could be sort of a gold color if you're really into decorating. Now here's a red room, and this is an office, and the walls are painted the same color as tomato soup. Studies show that red is not irritating. See, people associate red with fire, and they associate fire with irritation and misery, and they think that red is the color of aggression. It is not. It's a calming color. We are not taught to think this. Nevertheless, neurological studies show that it's true. Salmon pink has been determined to be the most relaxing color. This was proved by the University of Mississippi way back in studies that they did way back in the 70s. And they were trying to find a optimum color to paint drunk tanks. Now here's a picture of a drunk tank. And there's an officer standing in the drunk tank, and you can see all the tiles on the wall, the bench to sit on, everything is painted pink. That is because pink, salmon pink, is the most relaxing color. And after all, when somebody's all drunk and agitated, you don't want to throw them in a blue room. That's going to make it worse. You want to put them where they're going to be soothed. And it's proved to be absolutely impossible to stay aggressive when surrounded by the color pink. The actual color that has been selected over the years and determined to be the best is called Baker-Miller pink. And here we have a picture of an inmate, and he's dressed in a pink and white striped garb, and he's in a pink room, and he has pink tile on the wall, and he's sleeping nicely. He cannot stay violent in the presence of Baker-Miller pink. Here we have a picture of a cell in the Rochester, New York prison. I'm not sure which one, but there's the prison, and everything in there is painted pink. I think that we owe our students and our clients and our colleagues optimally lit and colored environments. I'm not saying that we have to go painting every office pink. As we know, a lot of men have a pink phobia, and so we don't want to take them there if they're uncomfortable. We could paint the office gold. We could paint it tan. We could paint it pumpkin. Any color in the red, yellow, tan to beige range is going to be fine. So if we're changing the lights and we're explaining to our administrator that we really need to put some pinkish colored lights in there, is that going to help very much if that light's bouncing off blue walls? No, it's not going to help. I mean, it'll help a little, but it's not going to be significant. But if that light is bouncing off beige colored walls or orange colored walls or something that's going to continue to keep the light that's bouncing in a range that's comfortable for our eyes and doesn't make them work 2 trillion times harder, then that would be good. So how do we do that? Well, we can use pink and yellow filters, and by filters I mean these things that look like sunglasses. Or sometimes filters are pieces of vinyl or gel that we can put over the fluorescent tubes or bulbs. We can use UV films on windows to filter out the ultraviolet. We can ask our students to wear cool hats. Lots of kids like to wear their hats in school, and most places it's not permitted, but what if it were? Would that be such a bad thing? Of course, they need to turn them around so that the brim actually shades their eyes from something. We want to replace cool, daylight, and full spectrum tubes with LEDs with warm white and 3000 K or lower temperatures. And these are cheaper. These are much cheaper than full spectrum tubes or daylight tubes. And so we're also saving money, so that's another good argument for your administrator. And we want to introduce our clients and our other rehab personnel to smart lighting. Smart lighting is the way of the future. Smart lighting is the way that everything's going to be in the near future. Many hospitals and like mental health centers and old folks' homes are lit with smart lighting, and they're really having some good results from that in terms of keeping people in the normal sleep-wake cycle, keeping their digestion running, and keeping them alert when they should be alert. Changes to the environment can be very helpful. Put up wallpaper. If you can't paint, maybe you can put up wallpaper that's in a color. And I've listed the colors here. They're pink, beige, yellow, gold, coral, salmon, pumpkin, rose, or tan. Any of those colors would be great. If they won't let you put up wallpaper, maybe you could hang a quilt that's in those colors. There's generally always something you can do to improve the environment if your walls are blue, purple, or some other color that is going to make our eyes work harder. So just for fun, let's look at some classrooms to see the range of what's possible. And these are just classrooms that I went out and photographed in most cases. All right, here's a modern classroom lit with daylight tubes at 6100 Kelvin. And as you can see, the walls are white, but they don't look white, they look blue. The carpet is gray, but it doesn't look gray, it looks blue. This is actually the room for an anthropology class at Indiana University. And if you sit in that class for, I'd say, more than a couple of hours, you're probably going to be suffering the effects of too much blue. So some things we could do to this classroom is that we could replace the lights with lights that put out more red. We could cover the walls with something that, well, the walls are white. They would actually be okay. They would reflect pink light. You know, maybe we could change the carpet to something besides gray that would absorb all the light and look a funny color. But primarily, all we would have to do is change the lights. Here is a neutrally lit classroom. This is at the American Printing House for the Blind. It's one of their training rooms, and it's sort of a goldish yellow color. It's lit with 3200K lamps, which are in the yellow range. And so this is a very comfortable classroom for both people with visual impairments and people without. This is a workspace at a design firm, and this is also lit with 2700K lamps, but it also has a lot of natural light so that you can't even really tell that the lamps are on because the natural light is so abundant in the room. And this is a situation that's really good for people with visual impairments, although someone with albinism would probably have to turn around and put their back to the windows. So this is all, or mostly, new knowledge for you. You want to make the world a better place for your clients or your students. And here you have a picture of my friend Lucy. Lucy is 93 years old. She lives across the street from me. She's a wonderful lady who has macular degeneration, and Lucy and people like her are counting on you to help make their lives better so that they can function with their visual impairments. She's counting on you, and so am I. So get out there and make those changes. If you'd like more information or a copy of this presentation, you can contact me for hard copy or electronic copy at raspberry.g@gmail.com or the CATS Network at 800-327-5287.